Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're stepping into, well, the pretty intimate world of a married call girl in New York City. This is back in the spring of 2001.
Yeah, and our main source is her diary, covering March through June of that year.
What's so gripping about this is the direct access, isn't it? I mean, these are her personal thoughts, her day-to-day with friends, clients, even her husband.
Exactly. It's her unfiltered take on her profession, her life. You get this uniquely personal angle on, a really complex existence.
Right. And our mission here, our goal for this deep dive, is to really get beneath the surface. We want to pull out some surprising insights.
Like understanding that balancing act, living two lives at once, the tensions, the contradictions.
And maybe even finding, well, the ordinary moments within this pretty extraordinary situation. So let's dive in. Early March.
Okay, early March. A big theme that jumps out is, managing those two identities. We see her talking with friends, Jasmine and Allie, about the sort of etiquette, the unwritten rules of dating when you're in their line of work.
And there's a real sense of needing to maintain a reputation, right? Even among themselves.
Definitely. And concerns are starting to pop up about online exposure. Craigslist gets a mention. That whole digital footprint anxiety was just beginning, I suppose.
It was a new frontier for that kind of discretion, wasn't it? And then you've got the sheer logistics of it all, keeping up the married persona.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm,
The diary mentions changing clothes for work in like hotel bathrooms or this shared apartment she has with someone named Charmaine.
right, which itself adds another layer, doesn't it? Sharing space while trying to keep secrets.
It really underscores the constant effort involved in keeping these parts of her life totally separate. That shared space with Charmaine, it hints at maybe finances, maybe some community, but also friction. You sense it's not always easy.
And things get really blurry when she writes about a potential client, someone who seems to have gotten her email through her husband's department.
Whoa. Yeah. Talk about worlds colliding.
It immediately makes you wonder, like, what was that interaction? How close did things get to unraveling there?
And you feel her vulnerability in that moment. It just highlights the constant, vigilance she needs. It's not just about being physically separate. It's about controlling information so tightly.
We also get this really vivid picture of her ritual before a client meeting. This one's at the Waldorf.
Uh-huh. She talks about needing to be inconspicuous, blend in, even though she's actually there pretty often for work.
That awareness of being seen but needing not to be recognized for why she's there, that really stood out
So,
to me.
well, it's almost theatrical, isn't it? The transformation she describes, the wig, the sunglasses. It's a performance starting before she even meets the client.
Just becoming invisible in plain sight and a necessary skill.
Absolutely honed out of necessity. Then there's an entry about a client interaction. It involves dominance play, a paddle,
Right, and she mentions having to sort of compensate because a colleague couldn't make it.
which suggests, a certain professional responsibility, maybe even solidarity within their network. It shows the performative side of the job. She's fulfilling a role, stepping in, makes you think about their unspoken rules.
But it's not all smooth sailing. There's this moment of frustration with a client, Colin,
Yes, Colin, she ends the session abruptly.
and then she's kind of grappling with it afterwards, questioning her own professional standards. It shows there are personal boundaries, even in this line of work.
Exactly. It's not purely transactional. Her feelings, her self-respect, they're still in play. The fact she debated it afterwards shows a certain professionalism beyond just the money.
And then the diary snaps right back to the mundane, doesn't it? Difficulty getting back to her own apartment, the simple annoyance of a torn stocking.
That contrast is key. The high-end work, the Waldorf, the clothes, versus these totally ordinary frustrations. It grounds the whole experience.
Yeah, the torn stocking. It feels like such a small thing, but it becomes this symbol of juggling these two vastly different realities.
And that leads into a change of plans, trying to reach Charmaine and feeling sort of haunted.
Haunted, yeah. It shows how tangled her personal and work schedules are. No easy compartments.
That feeling, being haunted, really speaks to the psychological weight, doesn't it? Like, the job is always there, always encroaching.
And the early March section wraps up with this almost absurd moment. Her husband, Matt,
Oh, the Gap incident.
yes, completely oblivious, asking for her help choosing underwear. The disconnect between his reality and hers in that moment is just...
Wow. It
The-
perfectly captures the secrecy, the emotional distance she has to maintain. He's focused on something so normal, unaware of the risks and complexities she just navigated.
So yeah, early March really sets the stage. This woman expertly juggling roles, managing her image, dealing with the logistics and emotions, all while trying to keep up the appearance of a normal marriage.
Okay, so late March. Now the complexities of the marriage itself really start to come into focus alongside the work.
Right, we meet Elspeth. A friend, maybe. She sounds completely overwhelmed, planning a birthday party for her husband, plus she has newborn twins.
It's this picture of, very traditional domestic life, and it's such a stark contrast to our diarist's hidden world.
It really throws the different life paths into sharp relief, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Elspeth's demands are visible, expected. Our diarists are hidden professional necessities.
And the diary shows her wrestling with this internal debate. Who gets to know about the job? Who knows she's married? She even talks with Leanne.
Leanne, yes. About whether being a married call girl might actually appeal to some clients.
But ultimately, her desire for secrecy wins out. It seems like protecting the marriage itself is paramount, even if it has potential professional angles.
That discussion with Leanne is interesting, though. The idea of marketability within the profession. But yeah, the risk of exposure, the stigma, those are clearly bigger concerns for her.
And yet, despite all this, she's planning this really special dinner for Matt.
The menu. Pecorino with pine nuts and truffle honey, steamed salmon. It sounds amazing.
It paints a picture of someone who really wants to nurture the marriage on that domestic level. It feels like a deliberate act of affection.
Yeah, it suggests the relationship isn't just, a cover story for her.
Right.
There seems to be a real desire there to connect, to create those traditional moments.
But then she makes this rather cynical observation.
About marrying for love being a luxury.
Exactly. That for people in her profession, marriage is sometimes strategic, maintaining an image, keeping client respect. It's a very pragmatic, almost sociological take.
It's looking at marriage through a completely different lens, isn't it? Not just personal, but as a professional tool.
And she notes needing to protect Matt's image, too, not just her own.
Which suggests, again, a level of care for him, even within this unconventional setup. She knows the potential fallout for him if things came out.
Definitely. She's aware her choices have consequences for others. Then there's a kind of surprising entry. She gets spam email.
Yeah, for a benefit cabaret.
Yeah.
For the New York City Council of Prostitutes, NYCOT.
Right. It lists performers, Allison as a press contact. It gives us this little window into a bigger community, maybe even advocacy efforts happening then.
That's fascinating. NYCOT. It shows there was organization, networking, maybe political awareness within the industry, even back in 2001.
And almost immediately after that entry, the contrast hits again. Elspeth shows up unexpectedly.
With baby supplies.
Oh.
Well, our diarist apparently still has her work stuff in a shopping bag nearby.
Talk about a visual metaphor. The baby things, symbolizing that traditional domesticity right next to the tools of her other trade, Stark.
And Elspeth makes these comments about fertility, about twins, probably totally innocent.
But they just land differently for our diarists, don't they? They highlight the different life paths, the choices made or delayed. It feels quite poignant.
And the late March entries finish with this conversation involving Matt and Elspeth, and our diarist is there too. They're talking about Allie's job.
Which seems deliberately vague. Her academic stuff, too.
Yeah. It just showcases the careful story she has to spin, even about her friends, to maintain her own cover within her married life.
Yeah, the web of deception isn't just about her. It extends to managing how her whole social circle is perceived.
So by the end of March, you really see how intertwined the job and the marriage are becoming, the constant need for secrecy affecting everything, and these subtle, constant reminders of how different her path is.
Okay, April. The diary moves into travel, more on social activism, and just competing priorities, pulling her in different directions.
Yeah, there's an anecdote from Jasmine about a client, a divorced rabbi.
Right. Contrasted with Allie, who's apparently longing for a real relationship with this guy Lucho.
It really shows the spectrum, doesn't it? From purely transactional work to this desire for deeper connection, even if it starts within that world.
And then our diarist is planning a client meeting, but she specifically chooses a less fancy hotel.
Why? Because it's further away from places Matt might be.
Exactly. It shows how compartmentalization dictates even her logistical choices. It's constant risk assessment, not just client preference, but minimizing the chance of overlap.
And then, boom, another Elspeth interruption. An enthusiastic call about baby bibs.
Chuckles slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah, baby bibs. It's another one of those moments where conventional life just bursts in, so far removed from the complexities our diarist is dealing with.
Elspeth even gives her unsolicited advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
About managing her friendship with Allison, suggesting single friends are good for a marriage.
It shows Elspeth is operating from a completely different playbook. Her advice, probably well-meaning, just totally misses the reality of the situation, the secrecy involved.
Then there's a domestic scene. Matt praising her tomato sauce.
Uh-huh. And she reflects that these nice, normal moments can't really replace the initial mystery, the spark that brought them together. There's a hint maybe that's fading a bit.
That's quite insightful, isn't it? Acknowledging the limits of routine, especially when there's this huge secret creating distance.
She also reflects on the unpredictability of her work, wishing for a perfectly choreographed day.
And contrast that with Sex with Matt, which she describes as easy, satisfying.
It's a candid look at the different kinds of intimacy she's experiencing. The work is performance and control. Whereas with Matt, despite the secrets, it feels more natural, more fulfilling to her.
Then the diary dives back into Allie's world, her activist website for sex workers.
Right, bold images, slogans like "Laborers of Love Without Borders."
It really showcases Allie's commitment to the cause, but maybe in a more assertive, even confrontational way.
Possibly. And Allie's approach seems a bit extreme sometimes, like fabricating legal support for colleague Noy, apparently to impress Lucho.
Which drives her diarist crazy. You can feel the exasperation. Allie's idealism seems a bit detached from reality, maybe?
Yeah, trying to project this image of strength, but it's based on lies. It creates real tension with our diarist, who seems much more grounded.
There's also a mention of a leopard skin solidarity group
Mm-hmm.
and their protest outfits.
Chuckles? Yes. It just highlights the diverse, sometimes theatrical forms of activism you find in these communities. Creative ways to get attention.
But Allie keeps pushing our diarist for help with Noy's legal situation, wanting her to involve Jason.
Who is the diarist's brother-in-law?
Exactly. And she barely knows the details. You can feel how uncomfortable she is getting entangled like that.
Understandably. She's cautious, aware of the risks of bringing her personal network into Allie's activism and Noy's problems without knowing the full story.
And she's torn, right? Does she help Noy out of real concern, or is it more about protecting Allie's image?
It's a tricky ethical line she's walking there. Loyalty versus a clear-eyed assessment of the risks.
She tries to reach a lawyer, Barry Horowitz, but fails. Then calls Allie with a very cautious promise about Noy's visa.
Yeah, managing expectations, trying to be supportive but realistic. The need for a lawyer just highlights the legal vulnerability they all face.
April also includes this late-night session with someone named Trish, described as unusual but rewarding.
Yes, involving a submissive client. And our diarist takes on this junior interrogator role.
It really emphasizes the power dynamics, the performance, and surprisingly, she found some fulfillment in it.
It's a fascinating glimpse into the sheer variety of roles within sex work. The role-playing, the control dynamics. And yeah, the fact it felt rewarding suggests a kind of professional satisfaction and meeting a specific need or fantasy.
But then the client tries to make small talk about her supposed university studies.
Which just highlights the awkwardness, doesn't it? Maintaining that cover story, even in such an intimate setting. Constant vigilance.
And Trish seems much more pragmatic about it all. Goes off to Agata and Valentina, the fancy food store, afterwards.
Right. Trish seems more at ease, more integrated, a contrast to our diarist's more conflicted feelings sometimes.
We also hear from Gretchen, who has a different take on NYCIAT and Allie's activism.
Another reminder that it's not a unified front. Lots of different opinions and approaches within the community.
It seems like Barry, the lawyer, ends up being a way to distract Allie from asking Jason for help.
Yeah, sounds like our diarist strategically managing Allie's impulsiveness, trying to contain the potential fallout within her own family network.
Then there's the urgent need to find the right outfit for a party.
Still focusing on image, even personally. The lines between her professional and social personas are always being negotiated. It's a constant performance.
She shares a memory of her Trinidadian aunt, a devout Catholic who married her mother's older brother.
It gives us a bit more family background, hints at maybe a complexity and acceptance of unconventional relationships within her family, though in a different context.
She also reflects on needing to pull back from marital tension sometimes to keep the romance alive, and the significance of Salad Nicoise from a trip to France.
These moments show a real longing for connection with Matt beyond the job, an appreciation for their shared history, her own past experiences.
Matt makes some playful comments about pregnancy.
Which she's clearly not ready for. And she observes how expectations of men and relationships are changing, hints at maybe different desires for the future between them.
And she admits this internal conflict about intimacy with clients versus with Matt.
That feels very raw, very honest. The emotion complexity, the potential disconnect.
Then an encounter with a client, Roland, unexpectedly becomes a arousing for her.
Yeah, blurring those lines again. She struggles internally to stay professional, control her reaction, shows the complex interplay of her sexuality and her job.
There's a near miss leaving a hotel, almost bumping into another call girl's client.
Just a flash of high tension, emphasizing that constant need for discretion, the risk of accidental exposure.
And the caramels. Seeing caramels in a window display that look like
It chuckles Riley miniature testicles, yeah.
And she has to make a quick exit because she has the wrong handbag, and someone might recognize her with it.
It's darkly funny, but it shows the almost absurd level of detail she has to manage. Even handbags become potential giveaways.
She briefly sees an advice column for married widows.
A fleeting thought about different life paths, maybe. A little moment of wondering, what if?
And April ends with her faking tiredness to avoid sex with Matt.
Using intimacy, or the lack of it, as a kind of subtle negotiation, managing her emotional landscape.
So April really deepens the story. Allie's activism ramps up. The pressure of secrecy is constant, and she's grappling with some really complex emotional territory in her work and marriage.
Right, moving into late April and May, the focus shifts even more towards activism, identity questions, and frankly, shifting alliances among her friends.
We see Trish stressed about an appointment, contrasting with our diarist's usual composure.
Though we know that composure is likely hard-won, covering her own anxieties.
And then Debbie enters the picture, a younger call girl.
Yeah, and there are concerns about her. Lack of awareness about safety, discretion, suggests maybe a generational gap or just inexperience.
Our diarist also notices older, retired call girls in her neighborhood.
A moment of reflection, maybe, seeing the potential long-term reality of the community over time.
But Allie's activism is really intensifying now, and maybe getting reckless.
The bizarre email subject lines. Question about Beaver. How's this for an opening?
Chuckles, yes. And her plan to go on television to talk about sex work? Our diarist is seriously worried about exposure, repercussions for everyone.
You can feel the anxiety rising. Allie's idealism versus the diarist's absolute need for privacy, it's a fundamental clash.
She tries to talk Allie down, offer practical advice, but it's like they're operating on different frequencies.
Exactly. The diarist sees the danger. Allie seems focused on the cause, maybe blind to the risks.
Though she does try to engage with Allie's beaver symbolism query for Canada.
Laughs lightly. Yeah, a slightly surreal moment of patience amidst the worry.
And having to explain the difference between the BBC and the CBC to Ally.
It just highlights Allie's potential naivete about media, the actual impact of going public.
Then there's a client interaction where she feels uncomfortable about a medical examination request.
Showing that even within the work, she has boundaries, lines she won't cross regarding her own privacy.
She mentioned seeing therapists in the past. A male psychologist, a female one named Anita Sampson.
It suggests she's self-aware, willing to seek help to navigate this life, and she has these sharp observations about their personalities.
There's that anecdote about overhearing talk of a king's daughter in a doctor's waiting room.
A reminder that you never know who you're sitting next to, right? Shared human experiences happening anonymously.
She leaves the doctor's with a prescription, then gets a call from Jasmine, still worried about Allie.
Yeah, Allie seems oblivious to how risky her behavior is becoming. The concern in their friend group is mounting.
And Allie's upset about her Google search results, compared to Lucho and his ex-wife.
Oh, that's such a modern anxiety, isn't it? Online visibility, digital comparison, reveals her insecurity.
Jasmine fills in some backstory on Lucho, and Allie finds out his ex lives in the same building.
Ah, the drama potential there, just layers of complication in Allie's romantic life.
Leading to a tense phone call between Jasmine and Allie about awkward run-ins with the ex. Our diarist tries to mediate.
You can feel the friendships fraying under the strain of all this personal drama.
Our diarist then shifts focus, reflects on her family again, her dad's connection to the Layton family in Trinidad.
Giving us more context for her identity, her roots, where she feels she belongs.
She remembers her Trinidadian grandmother's expectations, her dad's humor about the prominent family connection. It paints a picture of these complex family dynamics.
A blend of cultural heritage, individual personalities, expectations.
She identifies as Chinese from her parents, but then adds that humorous detail about a non-Chinese physical trait.
Just a little personal, self-aware, maybe slightly irreverent detail about her multifaceted identity.
Then she travels. Port of Spain for a funeral.
A big shift. Focus on family, different culture. Though there are lighter moments, hair advice for humidity. The fancy Miami airport.
Arriving in Trinidad, it feels familiar, but also physically uncomfortable. The heat, the humidity.
Yeah, highlighting maybe how much New York has become her norm, how time and experience change your relationship even with familiar places.
She feels uneasy about no chain lock on the door.
But then sees security guards and feels reassured, which is the opposite of how she usually feels about hotel security in New York.
Right. It shows how her profession totally shifts her perception of safety depending on the context.
Her cousin Dennis casually mentions a mall robbery.
And it illustrates how different the baseline level of perceived danger can be. What's shocking to her is just normal there.
But despite that, she says she feels safer in Trinidad.
Away from managing the double life, the psychological weight lifts when she's physically distant.
That says so much, doesn't it? Then there's mention of a trip to Wales, her ancestral home, before Trinidad. Lots of travel, disruption.
And she gets back to Trinidad to find her mother isn't even there yet. More disorientation.
She meets a cousin, Alistair, remembers kissing him as a kid. That reflection on time passing.
Her mom's preoccupied with an apology email from the unreliable brother, Sebastian.
A familiar family pattern, it sounds like. His flakiness, her enduring hope.
Even though he's supposed to be a pallbearer, despite being totally unreliable.
Adds that touch of dark family humor. Imperfect obligations.
But then Robert sends a nice message. Condolences, money for flowers from Sebastian. A more supportive connection there.
A welcome contrast. Shows the range within the family.
Our diarist has doubts about Erica's ability to handle Sebastian's potential drug rehab.
Protective instincts kicking in. Skepticism based on knowing her brother, maybe?
And she thinks about her own understanding of the hierarchy of lust.
Her rather cynical take on desire and respect in relationships, contrasting with Erica's possibly more naive view, a perspective likely shaped by her work.
She arrives at the funeral home, observes the family. There's even a tense discussion about lipstick near the coffin.
The mix of solemnity and just everyday human drama, even at funerals.
Her uncle Anthony gives an emotional eulogy, mentions Trinidadian news, hopes for future family gatherings.
Emphasizing those family bonds, the cultural weight of connection and loss.
Then she meets cousin Ian, the anthropologist, studying soda consumption and transnational families.
Right, and he wants to interview her, record it, gives a legal disclaimer.
A bit intrusive, brings this academic lens right into the family gathering.
They talk about her mother's weird relationship with sugar. She compares it to religion or hating synthetics, while her dad loves sugary drinks.
Just showing the nuanced, sometimes contradictory habits within the family.
And Ian interprets the sugar aversion as colonial ideology.
Which our diarist is skeptical about. Seems like she prefers a less extreme, more personal explanation, wary of over-intellectualizing.
Her mother then expresses interest in meeting Ian. Maybe wants intellectual stimulation, a break from the funeral intensity.
So our diarist arranges it, but sets conditions. Don't reveal what she said, mention her aversion to sweets, and mention her mom's interest in lawsuits.
Very strategic, aware of potential family complications, managing the interaction carefully.
She has a flirtatious email exchange with Matt. Then her mom immediately grills her about Ian Pritchard.
That constant contrast, again, managing her romantic life and her family's scrutiny side by side.
And the section ends with her getting anxious about Matt. Thinks maybe he's in the guest bathroom, suspects infidelity.
Even miles away, dealing with family grief, those underlying marital anxieties are still there.
So the Trinidad trip becomes this incredibly complex time, family duty, cultural immersion, personal history, all while her New York anxieties and relationships keep bubbling up.
Okay, June, the final stretch of the diary entries we're looking at. She's still avoiding phone calls, but checking voicemail.
Suggests things are still tense, unresolved back in New York.
But then Matt explains why he was in the guest bathroom plumbing issue, dropped a box of her tampons or something.
And it leads to this moment of relief, intimacy. She even admits she had a suspicious thought.
Yeah, and an unexpected bit of vulnerability and reconciliation temporarily eases those infidelity fears.
Matt mentions he's worried she's worrying too much about Elspeth.
A slight diversion. He's noticing her preoccupation even if he doesn't know the real source of her deeper stress.
But then Matt suddenly gets suspicious about missing money.
Whoa. High tension moment. She denies it fast, almost slips up about where her money really comes from.
A very close call. Could have blown everything wide open.
And she immediately falls back on the cover stories, acting, waitressing. Shows how ingrained that deception is in the marriage now.
She starts wondering about Charmaine's secrets, possibility of infidelity there too.
Maybe projecting a bit, or just becoming more aware of the hidden complexities in everyone's lives around her.
There's a beauty consultation with Terry. Ends up being awkward.
Yeah, he gets too personal, crosses lines, makes her uncomfortable, blurs that professional service boundary.
Then Larry returns with crack cocaine.
And his unusual way of smoking it, she tries it, finds she prefers it. This feels like a significant, potentially dangerous turn.
She reflects on the danger of any drug overshadowing sex, but then notes Larry's self-absorption, his pleasure that she's using.
That dynamic feels off, potentially exploitative, her awareness versus his self-focus.
She gets worried about potential partner swapping with his friends, the ambiguity around payment.
Highlighting the unpredictable, uncomfortable side of these drug-fueled encounters. Boundaries blurring, potential for vulnerability.
She leaves his place early morning with cash, then feels lethargic from the drugs. Contrasts it with an older work ethic.
Suggests maybe a shift in her priorities, escape, self-medication, the cycle of cash, then lethargy.
She compares her use to her brother Sebastian's later struggles with crack. Notes the changing social status of the drug, the fast path to addiction.
A broader social comment there, grounded in her own family's painful experience, an awareness of the real danger.
Larry deteriorates, tries to pay her with a check.
Big red flag in her line of work. She rightly distances herself, recognizes the danger.
And ignores his increasingly frequent erratic calls, setting a boundary there at least.
Yeah, self-preservation kicking in. She's able to cut ties in that specific concerning situation.
Hearing rumors about his disturbing behavior with other escorts confirms her decision was right.
Validates her instincts. She likely dodged a bullet there.
She finds some peace listening to classical music radio.
A desire for calm, order, amidst the chaos she's been navigating.
Buys expensive suede flats at Bergdorf's.
A moment of indulgence, reinforcing an image. A small reward amidst the stress.
Allie's paranoia escalates. A stalker sending threatening emails, accusing NYCOT members of supporting trafficking.
This is serious. Our diarist is worried about getting dragged into it, urges Allie to get legal help immediately. The ally situation is getting really precarious.
Allie gets emotional, feels unsupported by our diarist's cautious approach.
The friendship is clearly straining. Allie's instability versus the diarist's need for self-preservation.
She reflects on a past argument with Allie about manual labor, her own family escaping that.
Showing their different backgrounds, perspectives on work, opportunity, adds that social context.
Debbie, the younger call girl, is distracted, chatting online during a job.
Raises concerns about professionalism, focus, potential safety risks due to inexperience or carelessness.
Our diarist debates throwing out Debbie's forgotten laundry bag with a rubber sheet in it.
Underscores that constant need for discretion. Even helping a colleague involves risk management with the tools of the trade.
Allie has an emotional outburst about Lucho, wanting commitment, contrasted with Jasmine's single focus, Roxana's NYCOT focus.
There are different paths, desires, becoming really clear. Allie longing for conventional romance.
Dinner with Matt. She fakes her appetite, suspicions linger, contrasted with Allie's obvious loneliness.
The emotional toll is visible. Her secrets, her worry for Allie.
She expresses confusion about call girls using condoms with clients but not boyfriends.
Highlighting her own specific ethics around sexual health, fidelity within her marriage, despite everything else.
That core conflict, public persona versus private life, just keeps running through June.
Absolutely. It defines so much. Then there's brunch with Allie, finally talks about the breakup with Lucho, blames his issues.
A bit vague, maybe self-serving.
Possibly. Hints she might not be taking full responsibility.
But our diarist notes Allie looks impeccable despite the distress.
That performative aspect again, maintaining appearances even in crisis.
Allie decides to step back from public speaking, gets replaced on the committee. Our diarist advises her how to tell Lucho.
Still offering support, guidance, even with the frustrations.
Matt asks that random question about Miranda's religion.
Triggers a defensive reaction, makes her confront his potential prejudice. A new, troubling layer in their marriage.
Allie passionately defends the Nevada Three. Call girls facing charges, frames them as victims. Her activism is still core to her.
Yeah, unwavering commitment to the cause, fundraising, framing it as injustice.
Plans for a conference. Then Allie drops news about identifying Amy Hatcher, who's now off the committee.
Hints at ongoing internal drama, investigations within NYCOT. Seems turbulent.
Allie gives a positive spin on an activist meeting. Solidarity, Roxana as a role model, despite the risks.
Highlighting that strong sense of community, shared purpose, even facing legal threats.
Our diarist keeps advising Allie to talk to Barry Horowitz, the lawyer. Still pragmatic, concerned about the legal risks.
Jasmine offers a more cynical take on the Nevada situation, thinks a rival brothel owner might be behind it.
Shows the disagreements, different theories circulating within their community. They discuss the NYSide summit. Renee can't go because of probation.
A stark reminder of the real-world legal consequences impacting their lives, their ability to participate.
There's a description of Allie with her housemate Danny, a gay porn star. Seems like a supportive figure.
Shows those informal support networks, unexpected sources of comfort.
News about Courtney, the winged coordinator, getting fired from an event for being disruptive.
Shows internal conflict, professional standards, even within NYSI.
Then we meet Veronique, a trans woman, an elder in NYSI. Offers a more experienced view on Courtney, substance use.
Brings wisdom, nuance, understanding the complexities.
Veronique makes that wry comment about distinguishing Courtney's drug habits.
Dark humor, but pointing to a serious ongoing issue.
They discuss finding Courtney's replacement. Fox is considered. Notes about her appearance. Potential for mainstream porn.
Showing the different paths, aspirations within the industry, activism versus adult entertainment.
Fox apparently has an academic background, presented on white slavery narratives.
Highlights the intellectual side, engagement with social issues within the community.
A debate flares up about gender dynamics. A man comments on female pimps. Jasmine rebuts strongly about generations, feminism, objectification.
A real clash of perspectives on power, agency, how things have maybe changed or not changed.
Janny gets introduced to our diarist. Mentions a support group for married call girls, started by Roxana. Invites her.
Intriguing, right? Potential connection with others like her,
Yeah.
but also risky.
Her internal reaction is immediate hesitation. The complications, the risk of exposure.
Yeah, the caution is paramount. Might be too dangerous even for support.
She sees a woman in a t-shirt. No one knows I'm a stripper.
Such a perfect, poignant symbol of the hidden identities theme.
Allie sends a passionate email defending herself to the committee, painting Lucho as supportive.
Still managing that narrative, her public image.
Then Allie forwards another threatening email from the stalker and a cryptic message from Noy.
Raising serious concerns again about Noy's safety and Allie's judgment in staying connected. Seems increasingly dangerous.
Our diarist warns Allie again. No contact with Noy until she talks to the lawyer. Emphasizes the potential danger, need for legal advice.
Very sensible, pragmatic advice. Trying to protect Noy and Allie from herself, maybe.
There's a flashback to Ottawa, French immersion, the Ducharme family. Madame Ducharme seemed sheltered, naive compared to her.
A contrast in life experience, awareness of the world's harsher realities.
Madame Ducharme believed in white slavery. Our diarist's mother dismissed it as naive because Madame Ducharme hadn't traveled.
The clash of perspectives on vulnerability, exploitation.
But then our diarist realizes Madame Ducharme's instincts about exploitation might have been more accurate than her mother thought.
Suggests her own experiences have given her a deeper, maybe sadder understanding of vulnerability. Life taught her different lessons.
She tells an anecdote about being followed by a green car in London after a client.
Shows her heightened awareness, her ability to take evasive action, skills learned the hard way.
Mentions ultimate escort service and the manager getting arrested.
A real-world reminder of the legal risks. Maybe a bit of relief she operates more independently. Stakes are high.
Jasmine voices her growing concern about Allie's recklessness, worried about the fallout for her own life, her husband's career. Allie's becoming a liability.
Underscores the potential for isolation when someone's behavior threatens the group's safety or stability.
Matt suddenly gets into Christian theology, reading Graham Greene.
An unexpected turn in their marriage. Mildly annoying for her. Another of Matt's shifting interests.
Her internal monologue about managing his interests, his desire for her to consider motherhood, using avoidance, negotiation.
Shows her practice strategies for navigating sensitive topics, managing his expectations, deflecting.
Miranda dismisses old-fashioned dating advice. Our diarist wonders how Miranda would react to her strategies.
A moment of self-reflection triggered by someone else's conventional views.
Tense exchange with Miranda about Sebastian's potential drug charges. Our diarist is furious. Miranda discussed it with her prosecutor boyfriend.
Fiercely protective of her family. Deep mistrust of Miranda's judgment, discretion.
Miranda surprisingly agrees with the playing hard to get advice.
A brief, unexpected moment of connection on superficial dating tactics.
Awkward bar encounter. Miranda, Allie, Lucho, all there.
Highlights how interconnected their circles are, her constant desire to avoid scrutiny, keep worlds separate.
Matt accidentally reveals renting out their old man cave for his friend Gary's affair.
Leads to this detailed, almost comical explanation. Gary's wife smashing things gives her a glimpse into Matt's world, his friends' messy lives.
She internally judges their amateur handling of the affair. Forced acceptance of Matt needing his own space.
Reveals her more experienced, maybe cynical view on infidelity, trying to accommodate Matt even if she disapproves.
Allie updates about Noy moving to Portland, joining a self-help group for peep show performers linked to the Wobblies.
Wow. Shows Noy's resourcefulness. Allie's still supporting her. An unconventional support network.
Jasmine suggests Allie let Noy handle it, focus on the Nevada 3 press conference.
Pragmatic advice. Maybe a bit weary of Allie's intense involvement in others' problems.
The diary ends with thoughts on authenticity, identity. The Gucci watch metaphor, mismatched straps. Which version is the real self?
A really philosophical, fitting reflection on the fragmented, performative nature of identity in her complicated life.
And that brings us to the very last entry covered in the diary, late June.
Yeah, the final bits start with Leanne calling, excited about her new cell phone. Seems small, but it highlights the tech changes hitting their industry then.
Leanne reminisces about arranging college students for a client years ago, her current matchmaking work.
Hints at the cycles in the profession, the enduring networks over time, people find different roles.
Our diarist wonders if her own time has passed. Leanne insists her career is just starting, especially now she's married.
That's an interesting take, isn't it? Marital status as a professional asset in their world? An unexpected perspective?
They talk about newer call girls advertising online. Our diarist is shocked.
Highlighting that generational gap, the changing norms, a hidden world becoming more visible online. It was a huge shift.
Leanne tells a story about her first couples call, reveals the staged nature of some scenarios, the insider knowledge shared among escorts.
A little peek behind the curtain at the constructed realities, the shared understanding within the community.
We hear about Charmaine's meticulous client screening, her involvement in a provider forum.
Shows the different business models, safety protocols out there, no single way to operate.
There's an update on the Nevada 3, potential press conference with the Vegas mayor, a university discussion group.
Shows the activism continuing, pushing for legal recognition, maybe legalization.
But our diarist is firm. She's not joining in. Sticking to her low profile, privacy first.
Underscores her consistent priority, personal safety, secrecy over public activism.
She revisits Matt's old man cave, sees lingering signs of Gary's marital drama, a sense of closure to that little story.
A final glimpse into the messy lives around her, contrasting with her own managed secret world.
There's a brief thank you note in the diary, acknowledging people involved in its publication.
Reminds us this private record eventually became public, a collaborative effort.
And it ends with a list of chapter titles and dates. Gives us that chronological map of everything we've just talked through.
Yeah, helpful overview of the period covered, March to June 2001.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've really journeyed through this intricate balancing act, haven't we? A married call girl navigating her job, relationships, societal pressures in 2001 NYC.
We saw how the mundane, everyday stuff constantly intertwined with the extraordinary nature of her work, the absolute necessity of secrecy, managing her image, and the sheer diversity within the sex work community itself, the different perspectives, the activism.
Yeah, we saw her navigating that professional persona alongside wanting a normal marriage, the constant challenge of keeping those worlds apart, managing this complex web of relationships. It's a unique, sometimes funny, and ultimately really humanizing look at the contradictions.
The unexpected realities of an unconventional life.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. When survival might mean creating multiple versions of yourself, what does it actually mean to live an authentic life? And how do our personal desires and the pressure society puts on us end up shaping the choices we make, no matter what path we're on?
Something to think about.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.